posted photos of him and the new love interest, and she looked a lot like Lauren too, I guess. Also, he was prone to jealousy and knew about Rossman and Lauren flirting. And, like, if she was also flirting with Rosenbaum, or maybe getting into a relationship, like, maybe Wolf knew that too, and his anger, like, took over, possibly. And often it is the boyfriend who does these things. Like, when a girl goes missing, you check her husband or boyfriend or significant other, whatever. But at the same time, like I said before, there's not any security footage of him ever going to, like, that area. And if she was in that townhouse and you never see him walking towards the townhouse, then how would he be involved, I guess? Another big theory is that she overdosed in the townhouse because she did have that long QT disorder.
Oh.
And she was taking all those drugs and stuff, so she could have, like, she could have had a heart attack. And then the guys there got scared and covered it up. So, like, everyone there is, like, between 19 and 21. And they're also drunk. Some of them are also taking drugs, and it's, like, 4:30 in the morning. So I don't think they're thinking that clearly. So this could have happened. And, like, who knows what they did with her. But they could have hidden her away if she died of an overdose instead of calling the police. And this theory suggests that Rosenbaum's two visiting friends took her in their car and dumped her body somewhere on the drive back to Michigan. And the police never have searched the friends, like Alex Ferber's car, which was a 2010 Lexus HS hybrid sedan. And, like, the private investigators had tracked down the car years later and found that it had been sold in, like, 2013 and again in 2018. And it was now used for ride sharing in Minnesota. But no one was willing to spend the money to search the vehicle for possible DNA evidence. Which I'm like, why aren't you willing to spend the money for that?
For a human life,
Yeah.
I would kind of feel like any amount of money should be
Right. Also,
worth
like,
it.
wouldn't the parents pay for it? Like, I don't know how much that would cost, but, like,
Crowdsource? Like,
yeah. Why would they refuse to do that? I don't know. Or, I mean, by then it's been 7 years, so maybe they thought they wouldn't find anything anyway. But I would try. You never know. But Alex Ferber had said the police interviewed him, but they had never searched his car. So this is a viable theory. There was a lead that a couple bought a house in Indianapolis, and they reached out to the Bloomington Police Department to report the house they had just bought was full of trash, except a desk that was covered in newspaper clippings of Lauren. And the original owner was deceased, and his son, Scott Cooper, was a former Indianapolis police officer who was convicted 4 times for child exploitation. And at the time, the son was living in Greenwood, which was very close to IU. So an Indiana task force searched the house with dogs and saw the floor of the closet had been recently replaced with fresh plywood, and stains on the plywood appeared to be blood. But the closet ended up, under it was a crawl space and just a mound of dirt, like they didn't find anything. And the stains had come back negative for blood, so that was a dead end. There was an inmate from prison who called in a tip, and he said he knew Corey Hammersley, who was a former IU student who was in prison from shooting up an off-campus party. But one night they were playing cards, and the news on the TV, like, was there, and it talked about a story about Lauren. So Corey said he knew the guys who did it, and he allegedly said the guys were drinking and taking ecstasy with Lauren when she overdosed, and they got scared and dumped her body in the Ohio River. But in an interview on 2020 about Lauren, he apparently, like, walked back his story. But I assume they searched, like, the river and didn't find anything either. Another big theory is Daniel Messel did it. So he was convicted of killing Hannah Wilson, a 22-year-old IU student, and she was partying in downtown Bloomington in 2015, and her friends thought she was too drunk and needed to go home, so they got a taxi for her. But then she was found later that morning near State Road 45 in Brown County. And while in prison, Messel bragged to his cellmate that he frequently cruised IU's campus looking for young women to sexually assault. And he was also later convicted of a similar abduction in 2012. So a lot of people think he took Lauren, and the Bloomington Police Department looked into the connection, but they said they later ruled it out. I'm not sure how, but like Lauren was walking home at 4:30 from Rosenbaum, and she would have been the prime target for Messel in the same area that he was known to like prowl for years. So he could have been the one to do something. But it still doesn't really explain like where is she? Like why is she not being found? But um another suspect is Israel Keys. Like he was arrested in 2012 and revealed to investigators that his true passion was in abducting and killing strangers, and his murders went as far back as 1997. And his MO was to travel around the country and stash murder kits with cash and weapons buried in remote locations, returning sometimes years later to dig them up and commit murders at random. And he'd then dispose of the weapon, rent a car, and drive to a distant airport and fly back to his family in Anchorage, Alaska. So he took great pride in explaining his system and hinted at many murders he committed, but he wanted like the death penalty fast, and he didn't want to go to court or live the rest of his life in prison. So he committed suicide in prison in 2012. So there was no hope of getting like more confessions out of him. In his jail cell, he left behind a painting drawn in his own blood of 11 skulls, which he only had told investigators of 4 like murders. So they believe the 11 is how many murder victims he had, but the other 7 are probably going to remain a mystery. So Lauren could have been one of those.
Right, and I think that actually might have kind of fit his MO if I remember correctly. Like, these girls, he would. A lot of the other ones that are suspected to have been him, I believe they were taken late at night when they were walking alone.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess, I don't know, in the book it said he was probably in that area around like 2011. So it could have definitely been him, but there's not really a way to, until you find her, like, it's all speculation, so.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, a lot of this information came from the book College Girl Missing by Shawn Cohen, and Cohen reached out to like all the persons of interest before the book was published, which it was just published like in May this year. So he reached out to these people to see if they wanted to like say anything or clear their name, since he knew the book was coming out and it would involve them and cause like media interest again. So he just wanted to give them a chance to like say their piece. So Jesse Wolf responded by saying, like, pay him $100,000 and then he'd talk. And Wolf's dad called Cohen saying if anything libelous was in the book, he'd sue. So that was their response. Mike Beth never responded. Cohen reached out to the friend David Blesnick, who in Mike Beth's story had seen Lauren come into Rosenbaum's townhouse, but in Rosenbaum's story was already asleep. And he said he wasn't interested in an interview and didn't give permission for his name to be in the book, which the author was like, I don't need your permission to put your name in my book, because he was already named a person of interest. But I guess he asked for Cohen's email, and then he sent him a letter from his lawyer, who apparently represented him since like 2011, since this started. So like Blesnick had lawyered up this whole time, but like the cops had never talked to him or tried to interview him. Like that's kind of weird that he still has his lawyer this whole time. And that the cops never went to ask him, because they took it at face value, I guess, that he was asleep from Rosenbaum's story. But that's really weird. Rossman actually talked to Cohen, and he like didn't really say too much to clear up any questions, but he did say that if she had OD'd in front of them, like he said he would have called an ambulance and gotten her the help she needed. And he said any of the guys would have done that, and it takes a sick person to think of themselves in that situation and not call for help. So I don't know if that's true, but that's what he's saying. And he did say look into Israel Keys, who was in Indiana the night of the incident, which I don't know how he knows that. Is that common knowledge? Um, but he said he didn't have an answer, and like it's messed up that there's still no answer. He also said he'd been talking to Rosenbaum and Brooke Bolins, like the woman who he had called the night of Lauren's disappearance, and like they were all talking about the author like contacting all these people and bringing up this and stuff. So they were all still in contact after all this time and being like, "Oh, this author called me and here's what I said" and stuff. So maybe trying to get their story straight, or maybe they're still friends, I guess. Also, Rossman was confident like Brooke Bolins would never talk to Cohen, and he said there was nothing significant about the call, even though he said he couldn't remember what was said during the call. So, like, how does he know nothing was significant if he can't remember? But Cohen did get a hold of Rosenbaum, who he said he did not kiss Lauren at the Indy 500. And he repeated he was innocent since he passed the lie detector test that his lawyers administered.
Yeah, but they're not.
Right. Yeah, why? Like, do another one with the police then. I don't know.
Well, they're not they're inadmissible in court, so
Oh, yeah.
they're practically useless.
Right. They are useless, so I don't know. But, I guess Cohen asked if Rosenbaum had any regrets, and he didn't seem like he had any. He said he thought campus was safe and it was fine to walk around alone. So if he had done it over 100 times, he wouldn't have done anything differently. Like he wouldn't have walked her home because he thought it was safe. And he said she wanted to go home and her apartments were close to him and he couldn't have kept her there because she wanted to go home so badly. So he couldn't have forced her to stay. And he also said the cadaver dogs were in his townhouse and would have known if she was dead and would have had the scent like stop in his house. But like that's not really how it would work since she like wouldn't have been there that long if she did die there. Like they would have moved her body like pretty soon. So like the cadaver dogs aren't really going to find that much because they're saying she was there anyway and she's not, it's not like the decay. She wouldn't have started decaying already, so but he's saying since the cadaver dogs maybe cleared him too, I guess, because they didn't freak out. But, the author did get in contact with Brooke, and she mostly said she didn't remember anything. And she was also a drug addict now, like when the author was talking to her. But after Cohen talked to her, her mom called him and said at the time in June 2011, Brooke had called her mom and told her that Rossman had said the FBI is listening in on his phone calls and to be careful on the phone what you talk about. So she said, like, quote, and now I'm thinking maybe he has something to hide, end quote. But the author's nephew, I guess, is at IU, like while he was writing the book, and he said, like, he asked him if he thought campus is any safer now, and like he replied, probably not. Like it's still notoriously a party school, and like there have been other incidences on campus since Lauren's disappearance, so it's still not like super safe for women. Um, but yeah, that's kind of all I have. I don't know. Do you have last remarks before I say my conclusion?
No, it's just really sad.
It is really sad. I wish they could just find like her at all, because then
Right. Any kind of confirmation for the family. I mean, obviously, I hope that she's still alive, but I would think that any kind of closure in that situation would be better than not knowing at all.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think the family has kind of accepted that she is most likely dead, but they still want to find her body and figure out like what actually happened to her. And like how does going to a party with friends turn in you like literally disappearing off the face of the earth? Like that's crazy. Plus, if they could find her body, maybe they could figure out like actually who did something. Like you'd have more evidence maybe. Or they could maybe, well, I don't know if they could sue the like guys again if they did find,
Right. I
it's probably too late.
doubt they could. Yeah.
But still, like you could at least know